Let the blame game begin. Why did Kamala lose? And yes, the media is trying to find someone to blame. Let's go through the list of options. Blame a visibly declining 81-year-old Joe Biden. Blame African Americans not supporting Kamala. Blame Hispanics. Blame white women. Blame racist, misogynistic men. The election is over. Vice President Kamala Harris lost and former President Donald Trump won. How did this happen? Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment if you appreciate this content. Let's start the blame party with Joe Biden. People are going to point fingers. Harris inherited President Biden's political team with some of former President Barack Obama's team bolted on, and they will all be very eager to divorce themselves from the loss. President Biden insisting that he was running only to drop out belatedly after his disastrous June debate, and then endorse Harris short-circuited any chance for the party to meaningfully vet a candidate and field the strongest ticket. President Biden's refusal to step down and allow a primary in January of this year is why the Democrats lost. If a primary had taken place, Josh Shapiro, Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, J.B. Pritzker, Wes Moore, Andy Beshear, and others would have run alongside Kamala. The result would have been a strong nominee chosen by voters in a competitive process. If it had been Kamala, which you'd have to consider unlikely, based on her 2019 run, she would have been a different candidate who would have done scores of interviews and been fully prepped and toughened. Next up, let's blame white women. Harris lost because she was a bad candidate. Don't blame white women for that. Apparently, Democrats learned nothing following Hillary Clinton's loss in 2016. It was expected that all women would flock to Clinton simply because of her sex. They didn't, and white women helped deliver a win for Trump, much like they did this time. Clinton never forgave the women who didn't vote for her, and wrote a self-pitying book What Happened Following the Election that documented her disgust. Blame racist, misogynistic men. The less thoughtful will point to misogyny or racism or some combination. Yet, while I'm sure the country's first woman president will experience a different kind of scrutiny. MSNBC host Joe Scarborough knew exactly whom to blame Wednesday morning for Vice President Kamala Harris's election loss to Donald Trump: racism and misogyny, especially among voters of color. The Morning Joe co-anchor and his wife and co-host, Mika Brzezinski, sat down with the Reverend Al Sharpton for an impassioned post-polling vent session. It's misogyny from Hispanic men, it's misogyny from black men, things we've all been talking about, who do not want a woman leading them, the former GOP congressman from Florida insisted. Scarborough, 61, also claimed that there might be race issues with Hispanics that don't want a black woman as president of the United States. Kamala's weakness. Kamala had well-established weaknesses. One is that she was attached to the current administration with all of its drawbacks. Another is that she struggles with sit-down interviews. When asked a question, she seems to be thinking, "What should I say here?" instead of, "What do I think and believe?" That's a critical flaw. Her team managed to avoid this in the presidential race for a while by focusing on the DNC speech and the debate, but eventually she had no choice but to conduct interviews, and the results were uneven at best. If your candidate can't win people over by talking to them or in front of them, it's a major problem. Democrats will never admit that Donald Trump ran a better campaign and beat an inferior candidate in Harris.